Hi, this is Manasa Shastry. So I'm a self-taught artist. I actually completed my graduation in digital media and animation, but later on I started to pursue my passion, that is fine arts. So here I have started to basically do a lot of mandala works and folk art styles and different art styles, which have actually brought more interest in me. So I've also recently started to make my own wall mural art. So I've been taking commissions. So for me, art is something that is very close to my heart, and it's something, it's more like stress buster for all of us. So the same way, teaching art has become my greatest passion, I can say, because I just find I'm giving that peace to everybody else to whom I'm teaching. So art has been something that is always there with me, and I'm going to definitely make use of this to teach this to many others like you all, so that all of you can enjoy the essence of art, and how you can uh, use art to bring your life into a proper balanced way. Due to all this busy life that we have these days, there's a lot of stress and everything going around. So I think art is one of the best ways through which you can escape from the entire world and all the stress that it has. So I'm hoping to see all of you doing this artwork along with me, so that you can enjoy the entire work. So all of you will be aware of mandala because that's there in talk a lot nowadays. So basically, what is mandala? Mandala is a Sanskrit word which means circle. So if you observe any mandala art, you can actually see the basic outline structure of the work is usually in circular shape. But yes, nowadays we also do it in multiple different ways. People customize it to however they want. And also the symbols that's used in that, all the patterns that we see, everything has a meaning of its own. So earlier it was treated as something that's very sacred, and also it has a relation to do with the universe, because everything that we see around is in circular shapes, or it moves in a circular way. For example, sun, beyond earth also. So it is also referred to that cosmic energy which gives you that positive feel. At the same time, mandala is a stress buster, as all of us know. Why is it so? Because if you are doing any other artwork, you have to think a lot about it. But in terms of mandala, it's just like repeating single pattern. So you're not giving a lot of pressure to your brain. So it has the intensity, or the capacity to cool you down. At the same time, coming to turmeric painting, that is what we are doing with mandala. So here what we are doing is, mandala is a very ancient art style. Together we are also bringing in organic painting. So earlier it was just the natural pigments that was available which were used to paint. The same thing we are using here too. So turmeric is one of the easily available organic colors, you can tell, because everybody has it in our household, right? So the same thing is being used here. So you can actually feel that earthy sense, the aroma that you get when you're painting, how you can use turmeric and the bright color. It brings out the joy in you once you complete the entire work. So here you can just imagine this entire work as something which is having a lot of peace giving effect through the mandala, and also something which is connected to the earthiness that is there. So turmeric painting with mandala is a combination of these two. Basically, we'll be starting with mandala first. So we shall start off with the grids and everything, and we'll continue with turmeric painting once we complete a little bit of the basic drawings. So for now, I've taken A4 size sheet and I've drawn the borders. Uh, you will have to keep it horizontal. So we're going to do it in the landscape way. So you will have to find center of this line alone. So I've drawn borders on all the four sides, and you can choose any one horizontal line, either top or bottom, but it'll be better if you choose the bottom one. And you have to find the center. So for me, it's coming around the line is 28.5. So I have chosen 14.2. So somewhere there. I've marked the center because this is the point from where we're going to start making the mandala, and then we'll add on more patterns to it. So I'll just
Okay,
quickly
ma'am.
move to next step. I'll be using my compass now. I'll be telling few
Okay.
measurements. We'll go step by step. So the first measurement that I'll be taking is 1.5 centimeters. It's usually not recommended to always keep the measurements the same way, but yeah, since we are learning, it's better to go with the same. If not,
Yeah.
there is no limitations or there's no restrictions as such in this particular art form. So that's one advantage that mandala has, even though it has a really vast history and there's no proper evidence from when or from which region this art has evolved. So this part I have made one semicircle that is 1.5 radius. That's what I've taken, and I've made a double line of the same. So after this, I'll be going for 3 centimeters. So for this work, I've chosen 1.5 as the distance between many semicircles that we'll be drawing. So I've added another 1.5 to the previous. So it's 3 centimeter now. I'll be repeating the same thing. So yeah,
Okay.
I've taken another semicircle that's 3 centimeter, and I'll again make this as a double line. And I think I'll just quickly do the rest and I'll maybe write it here so even you can understand what all measurements I've taken. 1.5, 3, the next one will be 4.5, 6, and 9. These are the measurements that we'll be taking, but yeah, we'll go a bit slow. And yeah, I was telling about the reason why it's more meditative, because yeah, if you're doing any other artwork, you'll have to think a lot for each and every step, because there's no much repetition in it. But when it comes to mandala, or for that matter even few other art styles which has something in repetition, it's more like you're giving space to your mind. You don't have to keep thinking all the while what's the next step. You just confirm with one pattern for one partition, and then you can just continue the same thing. So that's the reason your mind is getting more space, and you're also doing something that looks really very beautiful. So that's another reason why it's more kind of meditative. So the next, I'm just taking 6 centimeter.
Hmm.
So I'm basically double lining everything here. So why do we make a double line? Because sometimes we will have to fill up the pattern. So if you have observed any mandalas, or even though if you've not, so the patterns, whatever we draw inside to fill the space, we will be filling that up sometimes with the pen that we use. So it's more of to bring a contrast, for which we will use more darker areas. So in that case, when you're filling it, if there's no double line, it kind of feels like everything is merged and there won't be any differentiation, because we are not using more colors to differentiate anything. Since we're just using black to do the entire mandala, it's better if you make a double line, because of which you can differentiate between the designs that's there. So whatever we are doing now is known as the grid that we are doing for mandala. So yeah, in continuing with the grid that I'm doing, you will have to use your protractor after this. So why do we use a protractor? That's again to divide the partitions. So when we are doing patterns, as I mentioned, we are going to repeat a lot of patterns. So if the distance between each pattern is equal, that's going to make your work look more neat. Because of that reason, we are going to use a protractor to divide the semicircle into various parts, using which we can add the patterns which are more uniform. So for
Yeah.
that, I'm going to keep my compass here. So this is the center, and I'm just going to mark all the 10 degrees from here. Like say from 90, this is the center. And yeah, I'll just keep marking through 90. From here, if I start 0, 10, 20. So all 10 degrees, I'll make a mark. And I'll have to start drawing lines through this later. So first I'm just making mark through all the 10 degrees that's here. This is very basic step that everybody follows to make a proper grid so that your work looks more neat. So now how to divide this? I have taken the markings with the protractor. I have all the markings all around. So from the center, each marking you have to draw a line. Make sure these lines are quite lighter. It shouldn't be very dark lines, because this is just as a guideline that we are making. We don't have to have these lines retained when we complete the mandala. We'll be erasing this off. It's just as a guideline for us. And remember, you have to keep your scale through the center and then draw, or else the markings go wrong. So for this, actually, for mandala, you can use any paper. There's no such thing like paper has to be something of particular quality. But since we are using turmeric today, I just wanted to have something that's of better GSM. Okay, so I'll start off with the pattern. I'll also show you a detailed version of patterns with that so that you don't get confused with it. Anyways, so first I'm starting with the tiniest semicircle that we have. So I'm going to make another very tiny semicircle around the point from where we have drawn all the circles. After this, I'll start making a flower pattern there, for which I will include, you can see there are a lot of partitions already here. I'm using a marker directly. If you are not confident or if you don't want to make mistakes, you can try with pencil and then you can go for marker. But if you want to do directly, very good. You can go that way also. And yeah, I am just using two partitions to make one petal. The same way, I'll just continue by using two partitions to make one petal. So you will have to be very careful when you're dealing with these parts that we have made, because the main reason that we made, because we want the pattern to be more uniform. So if you miss one of the partitions by chance, it happens at times, you just skip it and actually everything else goes improportionate, so it doesn't look that neat. But another advantage when it comes to mandala, whatever pattern you do, even if you go wrong at any particular place, it's totally fine, because once you complete the entire work, that mistake will not be so prominently visible. So that's a very big advantage that we have in this art. And I am also outlining the semicircle around it. Also, the double line that we did, this, I'm going to outline the same. So after this, when it comes to filling, since we are using turmeric today, so that's one of the only color that we are using. So there are various ways in which we can do mandala. It can either be making a really colorful one. Instead of using black color as the outline, whatever pen I'm using, you can actually use colors itself. You can directly use sketch pens or something. That's one way. Or you can choose one or two colors alone to do the design or filling in. But today, since we're using only one color, most of the patterns we are going to leave it a bit empty so that we get some space to fill the color in there. So in this again, I'm going to add this pattern, a dot and a line, but I'm going to do that for alternate petals. So I'm not going to do that for everything. Whatever is left empty, we are going to fill color there. That's turmeric. Most of it is quite simple, because all the patterns that we do here involves most of the basic shapes. It's more like a dot, a line, or a curve, or a rectangle, triangle, things like that. So since we are filling in spaces like this, it's good for us to have a double line, because if there was no double line, if you can just imagine without a double line, when I start another pattern right above that, it won't give that special effect or special prominence to any one particular pattern. It just feels like it's flowing and there is no separation. So since we are putting in so much efforts for each and every pattern, it's better all of them are visible, very neat and clear. That's the reason why we are using a double line. So after this, the next pattern that I'll be doing, most of the patterns we start from center because we get an equal count if we start from center. It doesn't look odd. So I'm again taking two parts and I am making a horseshoe shape, or you can call it as inverted U shape. And I was talking about the patterns used in mandala. So earlier there were a lot of meanings for all of this. It's also told like kings were using this to represent their map, the kingdom map. They used to make a circle and they had symbolic representation for each and every territory that they conquered and anything like that in particular, which was symbolized there. It was a totally different type of language which actually only king and his very close kingsmen would know. So there are few maps also available. It was known as kingdom mandala. Here I have completed with inverted U shapes. I am going to double line them. So the same reason here again, whatever pattern we do inside each of them shouldn't interfere with the next one. That's the reason I'm using a double line here. I'm just drawing another tiny inverted U shape inside the one that we already made. So, for example, we start with a dot. If you remember when we divided the center and when we draw a line and we found the center, we started with a dot from where we made all the semicircles and we divided it. So that dot, uh, not only used there, we use it various different places also. For example, here we have already used it in the pattern. So that's representing the birth or the origin. It's more like a seed. That's what it is considered. It's that's where everything is beginning. So that's this place from where everything has started. That's how it's represented. And line is continuity. So life has a long way to go. That's what line represents. So earlier all this were used, but now yeah, it's more like artwork. Inside this I am just going to make a partition. I'm dividing this into half. You'll actually have another line inside
Okay, ma'am.
that you did for your grid. So you'll have to just follow the same. And here we have lot of space. Unlike the previous time, here we have more space in which you can actually draw a circle which is very close to everything around it and fill the empty space, whatever you get next to it. So that circle is going to be very tiny, but instead of completely filling it with black, this is going to make it look more beautiful. Okay, so next we are going to use the petal shape. So basically why they use a lot of this shape is this is represented as lotus. When we entirely look at it, it's like the top view of the lotus. It's also seen in many yantras that we see in Hinduism. So when coming to that point, okay, this is the shape. Again, I'm taking the center. I'm taking a straight line and I'm bringing in a curve, mostly like how we do a petal, and I'll be repeating the same thing around. So yeah, when it comes to different religions, since we don't know the origin, why we don't know is because similar patterns are used in almost all the places, various different places, and in different religions. So there are few artworks which are limited to particular area or particular religion, but this one, it's almost found everywhere. For example, in Hinduism, you can see it in yantras, and also we do rangolis, which are quite similar to this. So yantras are actually very prominently seen examples for this. There are various different yantras. So Sri Chakra or Sri Yantra is one of the major out of all. That has very complicated patterns. It has lot of triangles in the center. So it is very calculative, I can say. If you miss just one measurement, the entire thing is going to be missed. So yeah, that is one example of Hinduism. And when it comes to Christianity, you can see in the rose windows that you see in church, the glass windows which has multiple colors, and
Yeah.
they also have syllatic knots. So there are various different patterns and designs in which you come across this symmetric pattern which has one particular pattern being repeating over and over to create one big artwork. In Islam, yes, they are actually very good at geometry. So Islamic geometry art is quite popular, and it's very complicated one again. So that is again similar to mandala, and they also have mandala which are having quite different type of patterns. Okay, filling inside this, I'm again going to repeat dividing it, but now we'll just add another pattern on just one side of the division that we made. So once we divide it, we are getting two parts. So on the, you can choose any one side, either right or left. I'm just going to make uh, slanting lines, repeating them just on one side. So I'm choosing the right side of each petal, the petal shape that we did. Okay, so here what happens, the more wide it gets, the more circles you reach, the more wide the partitions also get. So here you can see it was very close by, it's more diverging here. So the same pattern that I did here, but it's more spread. And here you don't get to draw a longer line in the center. Like if you can see here, I made a straight line and then I did this pattern, but here it's more like curved petal shape. Inside this, I'll be making another pattern. So yeah, we'll just quickly get to the finishing part of this. Yeah, apart from that, another very interesting fact that I have discovered about mandala, actually, I made a my one of my term paper for my graduation was about mandala. That's when I discovered a lot of things, and yeah, that's how my interest for mandala also increased. That's the time when I started all this. So there is something known as planet mandala. So uh, it is actually very interesting. One important thing is mandala is very closely connected to nature because it is repetitive. It has a pattern created, so we can see that it's more like, if you know what's Fibonacci series, it's completely related to that. So yeah, what is Fibonacci series? It's more like the way how the petals are arranged and everything. It has a pattern. Nature itself has a pattern on how the things are going on in and around. Even the minute things, even if you take a tiny little flower, it'll have proper count of petals and very neatly arranged. So that makes it look very pleasant. So yeah, mandalas are majorly inspired by nature because there are so many things in nature that's already looking very similar to that. But something there's in the outer space also happening that's very close to patterns and mandala, that is known as planet mandala. So if you look at the movement of, for example, say Venus from the perspective of Earth, so I am on Earth, and I think it takes around 8 years for Venus to create a pattern around the Earth. You can actually search as planet mandala. It will create a really beautiful pattern. That's it's very mind blowing to look at that. You wouldn't imagine that, okay, planets are actually revolving in a way that it's creating this beautiful patterns. It's really very artistic. Inside this, I'm again going to make a flower pattern. So the similar thing what we did here, but here we had equal distance since we had a semicircle, but here it's going to be different. So the first petal that I'm going to do will be on the center, and I'll just continue with a tiny one and another one. So this way you will have to continue until you reach the corners. You will get 5 petals, one in the center and two on either sides. I'll be filling the space that's left between the outline and the petals that we did. And yeah, I can just give an introduction about the turmeric part, whatever we are doing. So as I told earlier, when you have to create natural paints, yeah, that takes a lot of time, and we also need some more materials for that because it has to be thick and it should be resistant for all the other factors that's there around. Today we are just dealing with basic level, so very common way that we usually use. So it's, I'm just going to add water to that and we'll be using it. But you have to be very careful because since we are using powder here, we are not grinding or we're not taking it out from the actual turmeric, the root. So it's going to get lumps in between. So even when you're painting it, there are chances that there's excess of turmeric that's there on your paper. You'll have to just dust it off once it dries. The more turmeric is on paper, the better the color turns out to be. And you shouldn't be adding a lot of water to it because it gets more diluted, which again will give a lighter shade, which we don't want for now. And there is another interesting fact about turmeric painting. So turmeric is used as an indicator. So I hope you would know what's an indicator. If not, yeah, it's used to test whether an item is acidic or basic. So it's all the basic science things that we had learned earlier. So yeah, it is used as an indicator. So what happens when you're using baking soda or basic baking soda, I'm not sure if everybody will have, but yeah, I just found an alternative. So detergent powder, so all of us will have detergent powder. So once you finish painting with turmeric, you use detergent powder on that. So you have to use add some water to your detergent powder so you get the solution. So if you just apply that on the yellow part wherever you've colored turmeric, it actually turns red. So that's going to be a complete opposite color. And again, so if you want to get back to the normal yellow color, it's more like a magic trick. You just have to use lemon because that's more acidic. So you add lemon, you take lemon juice and wipe on the red color that it has turned. It's going to again turn back to yellow. So yeah, here I'm just adding vertical lines to fill up the space. Lines and dots are majorly used to fill up space because when it's repetitive, they really make your work look very good and also neat at times. And it's quite easy also, unlike adding complicated patterns. But yes, the more complicated your patterns, the more beautiful it looks. But even simple patterns can be made to look beautiful if it's done really neat, doing all the divisions that we did earlier. So definitely even this work is going to look good. Okay, so I'm just going to continue now. So the next pattern is, again, I'm going to use the same thing, but next one is a slightly complicated. I can say it's not complicated. We are merging two patterns at once. I'll show you how that is. So here I have longer space because if you remember, this is 6 centimeter and this is 9. So yes, here again, I'll be drawing a line and then I'll start off with this same pattern, but you have to be a bit careful on until where you are making a straight line and then from where you're taking this curve. So for that, if you're very doubtful on not getting it, you can just draw one and then you can take your compass, measure that and draw another circle. Yeah, I'm just continuing. So this line that I did was to know until where I have to draw a straight line and then from where I have to take the curve. I'm just going to make this double line and then I'll show what I was talking about, like extending this pattern. So how do you fill inside these? So this will be the basic outline that I'm doing for this particular pattern. It need not be the same shape. If you remember here, we used inverted U shape or the horseshoe shape. So likewise, we can use various other patterns. So this will be the outline and then you will have to start thinking on what you're going to fill inside this. So whatever you're going to fill inside this matters a lot because that was going to ultimately make your work look more neat and nice. So it's better to plan your work if you want something to be very systematic or something the way you want. If not, you can just go with the flow. I usually don't take measurements or anything whenever I'm doing something. Even when I'm doing it something very serious, I don't go for measurement. I just draw a random circle, whatever comes to my mind, or I just imagine what pattern I want and how big I want it to look, and according to that, I go with whatever measurements that I want. I I don't use scale to measure it. Randomly, I keep drawing circles and very random patterns, whatever comes to my mind at that point, I'll be doing that. So there are different styles right now people have, like there are many mandala artists, so they have their own style, and it is pretty good to see different styles created in this artwork. This is the basic thing that we have done everywhere, but now I'm going to repeat the same thing, but I'll just tell you how I'm doing. So we have these points here in between. Now this is going to be the tip of another petal that I'll be drawing, and this is where I'll start. I think I'll just complete so much and I will start off with the turmeric part after this. And whenever you're doing mandala, if you go wrong at any point, you don't have to discard the entire thing. Please continue with the same thing because I told you it's not going to be visible once you finish it. At times, even my work will have some mistakes, but later when I look at it, it's difficult for me to even identify where was that. But yeah, definitely if I look close to it, I can. But yeah, it in general you cannot because there's a lot of patterns that's already there. So it's not like there's one particular feature that you've gone wrong or something. So it's just going to hide everything else, whatever mistakes you have once you finish it. So yeah, I'll just quickly move to the turmeric part. Yeah, I have turmeric here. I'm just going to add little bit of water to it, like very minimal. There shouldn't be more water added. I have a lot of turmeric actually. So I'm just adding around say 5-6 drops of water, just a little bit. And it's okay if it's more thick. So it need not be, it can be in the consistency of acrylic paints that you get. Like, but yeah, it is going to be a little thick and it'll have some granules because it's powder that you're mixing with water. Until and unless you add a lot of water, you don't get it like paste. But it's okay. We don't need it that way. And I'm using number 4 brush. You can use either 4 or 2 round brush, whichever you're comfortable. And yeah, I'm just going to start filling these areas. Here you can see there are some granules of turmeric also. Actually, this really helps to get the better color because a long time when it is staying on the paper, the cellulose that's there in your paper will absorb the color from the particles that's still there. So once it's dry, you can still dust it off, but whatever color that it has, most of it will be transferred to your paper. So it's better even if you can make a thick paste, but if you make it really thick, it's difficult to fill in small areas. You have to be a bit careful about that. Wherever I had left empty space, I'm just going to fill that up with this paste that I've made. So it's more like paste, you can say. It's not like paint because I told you if you want to make it like paint, then you have to add a lot of water, which will make it lighter. So it's more like paste that you will have to use. And even turmeric, if it is exposed to a lot of sunlight, it is going to fade. But I think I have just kept my artworks very safely inside once I complete it. So they have not yet faded that much. If you want to make paints out of it, you will have to add different elements to get all these pigments stick to each other and give you that really smooth texture and all that. And there's a lot of different process for that. And since you're using fine liners and OCD markers, you don't have to worry about water or paint, whatever you're using. You can just do over it at places. And if you want to add the entire background as yellow, you'll have to be a bit careful when you're using turmeric for that matter, because I told you it's more like powdered and it's more like paste, not like paint. So you will have to use a flat brush and you just have to keep doing it in one direction alone. You shouldn't change your direction. It creates a lot of patches if not. So it's recommended to do it in one direction and you'll have to use a nice flat brush. And yeah, your background will definitely have a lot of powder left over it. Once it is dry, you will have to dust it off. Then you can see the actual color. We can add a pattern here. I'll just show this one. So yeah, this is the pattern that I was planning to do here. And this part, maybe after it dries, you can add something more if you want, or you can leave it that way. Even that's going to look good. But this one, you have to be careful. It's alternative. Like one is turning right and the other one is turning left. So it's better to follow the same way. So yeah, I mostly use these patterns like the petal pattern and fill it with flowers. I think that's like my style it has become. There are various different patterns that you can explore. Yeah, this is the work that we were actually doing. So coming to turmeric mandala, I have this work with me. So what you can see here, I've made use of mandala here. This is the actual way how we draw mandala. I've also included some florals just to add some good look to the entire work. And the work is painted using turmeric. So this is what we'll be doing. So you can see the bright color that turmeric gives to the entire work. And it's a really good contrast because black and white, we usually use pigment pens to do the mandala, and you have yellow over it, so it's a good contrast which makes it look really good. So apart from this, we also have many other styles in which mandala can be made. So this one what you see here, it is just a pattern that I have. There's mandala here in the center, and then I have the quarter parts at the corners. So this is a way in which you can do mandala. So not just patterns, we can also include some other topics like florals or anything that you want. So it's quite interesting that way because it's not having any boundaries. Unlike other art forms where you just use some motifs, here you can just put a mandala with or around anything that you want. Here you can see I've added floral work, the sunflowers, and I have mandala added here. At the same time, these corners are not circular, but still they are quite well matching with the entire work because of the patterns that's used. Because again, coming back to patterns, that's a major part of mandala. So similar to that, I have another floral artwork. You can see I've broken the mandala in a different way. I've just used two mandalas, I mean semi circles on either sides of the page. So it's just up to our imagination however we want. So this is another thing that I would want to show. Here you can see I've taken the concept as chess, so I'm showing the chess board here. So the contrast of black and white can also be given just by adding patterns. It's about how you fill the entire thing. So again, you can see this is something more like night sky, and I've added mandalas and also the borders. So this way, there is no limit to your imagination. You can just choose any topic that you want, and you can add mandalas or patterns, anything related to that. It is definitely going to beautify your work.